But alrighty then, shocking news here. MOUZ benching siuhy. Siuhy. I believe they say siuhy. In Finnish we say siuhy. But siuhy ahead of Katowice in a shock move. And even though it's sort of an editorialized title to this article by Mira, it is for sure the truth. It is pretty much an objective fact that this is a shock move right out of nowhere. MOUZ played like a top 5 team all throughout last year. Sure, the narrative followed them throughout the year where they couldn't end the tournaments over the finish line unless you were talking about smaller tournaments like the Bet Boom Dahas, where you didn't play in front of a arena audience. But still, a young, promising team, one of the teams that seemingly was going to stick together as a 5-man unit from 2024 on to 2025. Brollan obviously joining in the early parts of 2024, so that would have been a pretty big advantage for them, I would say. Coming into this year, them, Navi, Spirit being teams that stick together as a 5-man unit, they can rely upon what they've learned as a 5-man team, the strats, everything. You can build upon that foundation, you can go back to it, you can modify some things, become more unpredictable, but a lot of different directions you could have gone to. And the biggest question mark was at the end of last year, Yimpat. Is he gonna stick around? An all-around great anchor player, the second best anchor of last year, and I would say the best small site anchor when you think about a map like Mirage B. It is Yimpat's playground. He's amazing in that role, and the fact that MOUZ could hang on to Yimpat was, made it seem like, okay, now everything's set, let's go on to the next year. But here's MOUZ's statement just a couple of days ago. siuhy will be stepping into an inactive role as a result of differing visions for the team's direction. Brollan has been appointed as the new in-game leader. Additionally, Torzi and Zershan will undertake expanded responsibilities within the team. Very, very interesting, and in this statement they said that Zelex will be their stand-in for IM Katowice. Just here to interject a little bit, apparently Zelex will be playing for MOUZ in Katowice, so Spinx coming in after Katowice. Back to the video. siuhy, all in all, he's been regarded as one of the better in-game leaders in the whole scene, taking Gamer Legion into the grand final of a major. What he's done with MOUZ, he's a pretty solid fragger, although you have to say that he gets to play some high fragging roles, some high impact roles where he's able to read rotations like Connector on Mirage, so you're expected to frag somewhat there. But also the playstyle that MOUZ played under siuhy was pretty solid. Solid fundamental Counter-Strike. I wouldn't say it was too free-flowing or too structural. A good blend of all the worlds. But I guess you have to say that maybe MOUZ was missing some level when he got on to the bigger stages, when they had to face teams with better firepower than they themselves have, when they faced Carrigan as an opposing in-game leader, when they faced Navi, who you could argue that they have pretty similar levels of firepower. I felt like MOUZ was always the underdog in that matchup. So in that sense, I'm maybe a little bit surprised of how almost hostile the whole scene has been towards this change. I'm gonna put my cards on the table. I think he's a good in-game leader. siuhy is a good in-game leader. He could be great one day, but it seemed like MOUZ was ready to stick with him to this year, and the time when this roster change arrives is very, very curious. Right before IM Katowice, that tells us that MOUZ was ready to stick around with this 5-man core, but what's happened? Differing visions. They're not giving us much here. I believe we saw some news on play.gg about this story. MOUZ offers insight on siuhy benching. The team needed a new impulse. We were hopeful the vacation would provide the team with enough new energy to push through. Let's see the quotes here. Clearly, we would have preferred to make this change during the winter break, but we were hopeful the vacation would provide the team with enough energy to push through. The timing isn't ideal, but we will now put full focus on our main goal in Austin during the first half of the season. Austin being the major at the end of this season. Okay, what are we reading here, and can we read anything between the lines here? In this white space, what does it tell us? It almost makes it seem that they were thinking about this move in the winter break. We would have preferred to make this change during the winter break, but maybe they thought that clearly they thought that the vacation would provide them new energy. So what does this energy mean? Could it mean that he wanted to continue with the same, let's say, play style, with the same strategic view of the game, where maybe the team wanted to push forward into some different directions, maybe deepening their playbook in some form? It's hard to say. We're doing the best we can with the information we're given. Let's see where he continues to. I think after such a long time together, it's natural that sometimes everything becomes less exciting, both in and outside of the game. So this also makes me think that it's something to do with how the team views siuhy's commitment, motivation to the game. It feels like he's talking about siuhy in particular here. It's such a long time. It's natural that sometimes everything becomes less exciting. So maybe he's less eager to come up with new strats, new game plans, both in and outside of the game. So in and outside of the game, what could it be outside of the game? Could be a lot of things, but maybe sticking around, and that whole friendship angle that MOUZ is always pushing towards us. Maybe some cracks were starting to show also in that front. Some players have been playing together for a long time. Yep. So definitely some friction going on. Of course, making any roster change is always the admission of one's own mistake, but we strongly believe that we could build on our 2024 run this year. Some of the players have been together for almost 4 years now, and it became apparent in the first weeks of the year that both our team and siuhy, individually needed a new impulse to keep growing. I've seen some people speculate on whether it could be like very personal issues. Let's not get into that, but to me this reads that it is pretty much all connected to the game and how these players view the game, how the coaching staff views the game in MOUZ, and maybe we don't have to go too much astray from the comments that MOUZ gave us in here in this one descriptive sentence. Different visions for the team's direction. I suppose it all boils down to that. But that brings us on to Spinx and MOUZ pointing towards, maybe Spinx pointing towards Brollan. You're the in-game leader that I trust. Maybe Spinx didn't have many other options right at this point in his career. But he lands on his feet. That's nice to see from Spinx. I think Spinx is a great player. And this puts MOUZ's lineup in a very interesting position. Let's talk about the upsides first. I feel like we're not talking about the upsides enough here. People are just so quick to compare this situation to NC's Finnish roster's struggles and them going for the firepower upgrade over Alexi B's leadership. But yeah, I suppose there are certainly similarities to be seen here. And I don't have much faith in Brollan as an in-game leader. We don't have many examples of, non-in-game leaders becoming great in-game leaders in a season or two seasons. This feels like a very temporary move to me, almost a panicky type of a move. But what they're able to do here, they're able to fish out, I would say, at least a top 10 rifle player in the world at his prime, at 24 age, Spinx, who I suppose he had some personal issues within the Vitality team, some differing views in that camp also. But the view I have from Spinx, what I've gathered from him and what I've heard from other people who talk about Spinx, is that he's a very chill guy, a very relaxed guy. And I've also heard that some people are even a little bit surprised that someone couldn't get along with Spinx. So I think he fits like a glove into this team. I don't think he's going to cause any problems. I think he's going to be the one to solve them in terms of his all-around personality and also his fragging input in the server. Like, the instant he lands on this MOUZ lineup, I think he is the best player on this MOUZ lineup. And that's something that, I don't know, I feel like people are missing it. Like, how are we missing this? MOUZ gets to grab a player who's instantly going to be the best player on the team. Well, that's something I feel like people are ready to miss instantly. But I can see why people are going to miss that, because the big story here, is it even the biggest story that Brollan is going to be the in-game leader? I don't even know. I feel like MOUZ just made a very temporary decision here. Like, Brollan, okay, you can try out in-game leading here. We're in a bit of a panic state right now. It's something we got to do. We have a chance to sign a friggin' all-star rifler in Spinx, so we'll just work with what we have throughout the first months of this season, and let's see if we are able to snatch certified in-game leader at some point. So I don't feel like this is a bad move at all from MOUZ's side. If indeed things were so dire that they felt like a couple of weeks before I Am Katowice that they have to make this type of a crazy move, then okay, well, whatever the circumstances were, they led to this point where they couldn't keep playing with siuhy anymore. And this puts MOUZ in a bit of a retooling phase. I like to think of this as. I don't necessarily understand why every time in Counter-Strike we think of these teams as they always have the same instant goal to maybe win the next tournament, or maybe that this next season has to be the best season ever for this team. There are some peaks and valleys, and this is a bit of a valley here, but the peak is already visible. Look at this core of riflers they have. Xertion, sure, needs to perform in maybe the big stage games, but 20 years old, already one of the best aggressive riflers in the world. You got Yimpat here, one of the best closers in the world, one of the best anchors in the world, the best B-site anchor of Mirage in the world, and Spinx, a certified star rifler. And I think I just don't really understand why people are so quick to dismiss Spinx and his impact right now. I also thought that everyone thinking that Rops is a clear upgrade over Spinx is a little bit crazy. I think on the server, position for position, I think Spinx finds more impact per round than Rops does. It's not a big margin, it's maybe like a 0.01 margin, but if I had the decision to start building a team and I would have the option of grabbing Spinx or grabbing Rops to start building around, I would love to take both of them. I think it's a real Sophie's choice, but I would go for Spinx, definitely. So all in all, it's not the position MOUZ wants to be in right now necessarily, but it's not a terrible position to be in for certain. Like, this season is gonna be possibly a little bit ugly. They might not reach the peaks that they have throughout maybe 2024. But guys, I don't know what makes you think that Brollan becoming the in-game leader is gonna be a permanent solution in anybody's mind. In Brollan's mind, in MOUZ's mind, in the viewer's mind, who really is gonna think that Brollan is gonna be the certified in-game leader throughout the foreseeable future for MOUZ? I don't see that being the case. This is just a bit of a limbo stage that MOUZ is entering into, but if you enter this limbo with this type of a roster, things could be worse. They're one roster move away from being maybe even better than they were with siuhy. Okay, those are my 2 cents on this whole MOUZ saga. I can't believe we got a roster change this exciting a few weeks into the season, but hey, it's pretty cool to see. I think it's nice to see Spinx on the server for sure. It was almost going to be a little bit sad if we weren't going to see Spinx playing throughout this first season of 2025, but he's here, he's with MOUZ, I think he fits in, and let's see how things form from here.